Hi there. My name is Alex Schultz. I'm a video game developer, and this is going to be a narrated gameplay walkthrough of a 2D platformer, and actually the first game that I ever made, called the Millennial Stone. This game was the result of a 2-month-long team game project in a 2-year-long game development graduate program called the SMU Guildhall. And that project happens about 2 months into the program. You're sort of just shoved into a small room with 3 to 4 other multidisciplinary people and just sort of told to make a game. And the only restrictions you get is that it has to be 2D and it has to work with the Unity engine, which is what this is built in. My roles in the project, I was team lead. So basically I just maintained the game design documentation with the help of an executive producer and the other leads on the team. I sort of just steered the general game development ship, as it were. But having said that, I had a fantastic team. For 4 people just shoved into a room to make a game, we all had really good instincts, we had great drive, we knew what we wanted to make, and we just made it, and the whole project just went really smoothly. I was also the lead programmer. I was not actually assigned that role because the program is multidisciplinary and programming is way harder than the other disciplines in a lot of ways. We usually get less programming students, and because of that we were short-staffed and my team actually didn't get a programmer. And I had some CS experience from my undergrad. I had worked with C++ and Java, so I just sort of took that on my shoulders. I did all of the scripting for the game. Anything with any sort of mechanical function I built on top of the standard Unity library. And I also designed and scripted all of the menus, including the one you're looking at now. And I was also a level designer, so I designed and built the 3rd level of the game, and also being the lead programmer, I did some custom scripts for it to make it look and feel really good. For the aesthetic, I don't know how much you're getting from the menu, but we drew from games like Journey and Shadow of the Colossus in the sense that we wanted to be very hands-off with the player experience. We wanted to throw the player into a mysterious, empty world with very little backstory and just have them figure out the narrative, figure out the gameplay mechanics and the controls very naturally so they feel smart, they feel invested, and it ended up working very well for us. Especially considering it was a 2-month project, we had to make a lot of design decisions to get a lot of bang for our buck, and having indirect hands-off narrative allows the player's imagination to do a lot of the work for us. As part of this, all of the menus actually exist in the game world. There's a main menu, a level select menu, and a pause menu. The pause menu freezes the game, so it isn't terribly relevant, but what we're looking at now, the main menu, as I said, actually exists. So using some parallaxing sprite scripts that I wrote to give the illusion of depth, you can control the camera and move around, and it's very real. And this is actually in the first level of the game, and when we hit New Game, we will actually just sort of begin where we are. To discuss the menu a little further, that New Game begins the game. Level Select takes you to this little menu where you can also move around, and it's got little pieces of concept art and indicators of how many collectibles that you have in each level. And it's if you just want to sort of skip around and play it, and then there's the controls for the gamepad designed on PC. Before I start it, if you want to play this yourself and not have me spoil everything, please go to my portfolio website. It's www.alexschultz.com. I have a page for the Millennial Stone in my team project section. You can download it yourself, play it. We'd love it if you experienced it. We were really proud of the end result, and we just really want to share it with as many people as possible. And that site also goes into goes really in depth with basically everything that I did on the project. It actually has examples of my scripts and whatnot. But yeah, that being said, let's just sort of begin. And we're in. So that's our opening sequence. It's a custom little script I wrote to just sort of manipulate the camera and trigger animations, and this is where the player begins. They're sort of just thrown in as this little golem guy with little feet, and they just sort of start playing. This little guy is called Hamak. That was purely a development name. He has no actual name in the game, but he's a little physics character. So when I was designing the control system, I wanted it to feel very smooth and responsive. So I used the Box 2D physics system that Unity 2D is integrated with. Basically, when you use the inputs, it applies forces to the player, or player character, sort of moves him around. His jump is a little impulse. There's a nice rumble when you land. And I implemented artificial friction to let you just sort of turn on a dime. All of these combined to make the control system feel very responsive and smooth, and I was very pleased with the end result. This is a checkpoint. Our artist, Aaron Hamilton, drew up a little sprite sheet of when you touch it, it sort of activates and glows in theme with the rest of our world. It saves the game state, restores it. It's a whole thing. Again, my website goes more in depth of the actual scripts. What we're about to see is the first cinematic of the game, and it's a cinematic in the sense that I have scripts that manipulate the camera size, and it works in tandem with the music to really sell the tone of our game to the player very early. And let's go ahead and see it. Pretty much everybody who play-tested or played this game, the moment they saw that particular moment, they instantly understood what we were going for. They got the tone, they got the scope and mystery of the world, and they began to be very intrigued about this place and why they hadn't really been told anything yet. And it made them want to explore and find things out. Following up on that, this little diagram is not terribly relevant to the player experience, but if they really look at it, it's got a little... the rock we started at was called the Millennial Stone. And it's got sort of a little path with symbols going up to this tower with an orange light at the top, which is basically what you just saw up there. And it's sort of just a little, this is where you should go kind of thing. But again, the game is fairly linear, and you can just sort of keep going right, and you'll eventually get to where you need to go, which most players did, and it worked out very well. This is where our tutorial begins. So pretty much everybody, when they start the game, just sort of moves the sticks and sees that they can move. And they get here, they see the green gem, they see the picture, they look at the gamepad, they say, oh, it must be A, and also A is a very standard jump button. Combining those things together, players really instinctively understood what to do, and it was very natural. Moving forward, with our little world here in a jungle, this is our collectibles. So these are called mural orbs. You'll see why when we get a little further into the game. But we added them to give the player something to look for, allow them to do a little bit of exploring for a reward, and the reward is, again, you'll see at the end of this level. When you pick it up, the orb has some special scripts that register its ID number, and it actually saves it, so if you go back to the menu and replay, that orb will be gone, you have it forever, and when you touch it, it actually attaches to the player camera and has a nice little smooth blending up into your menu when the little chime, and it was very satisfying. Players really enjoyed that. Here we see our hazards. So down here is just a little preview of our spikes. You die, and that's also the respawn script. And you can die with spikes or water because you're a golem, and rock Pokemon are weak against spikes and water. Further on in our tutorial, we have our secondary mechanic. Our primary mechanic is presented at the end of this. Our secondary mechanic is a basic little dash that you hit by pressing the blue or X button on the gamepad, and it's a little physics impulse that activates a trigger that breaks these special barrier objects. The barriers themselves have physics. They spawn little shattered pieces that can themselves make splashes, and you can kick them and play footsies. It's very entertaining. It wasn't a huge thing, but we added that at the last minute, and players really just enjoyed it. It added a little bit of that extra 5% of the world. For this next mural orb, it tests whether or not you have a grasp of the mechanics. You have to jump and dash to get to it. And then you don't have to here, but it helps you get across if you do the dash. I think you can barely make it without it. And then we enter a small little temple. And this is where we really test if you've gotten both of the mechanics. There's a lot of jumping and stuff. Here we have a waterfall. I made a really basic Unity particle for it just to give it a sense of movement. Aaron made these animated little sprites up here, and he made the fog, and he made everything you see, but really did a great job. And it actually, in relation to that, pretty much every asset that you see is modular. To save time, and it was a 2-month project, we had to do as much as we could to get more bang for our buck, as I said earlier, so everything is tile-based, and we just used, the Z order to have things and create an illusion of depth, and he was very supportive of my parallaxing sprite scripts to really help the world sell itself. As you're seeing here, There are triggers on both sides of here that manipulate the player's camera size smoothly. So I really wanted the player to be able to see everything that they needed to see at any given moment, and that really helped me do that. And the other LDs that worked on their levels as well. Here you go behind, grab the thing, nice little depth there, and the pieces can fall into the waterfall, and they kind of just keep going and they fall down. Whee! And here we have our primary mechanic. So you probably haven't noticed because it's very subtle, but all of the walkable surfaces in the game are covered in moss. Really helps the player, like, it looks very natural, helps the player identify where they can go and follow the critical path. These special surfaces that have moss and also the runes are glowing are part of our primary mechanic, which is wall walking. Hamok's magical little core can update his normal rotation to whatever surface he's touching that has the magic inside of it. This was a very simple mechanic to prototype, and I did it very quickly, we iterated on it a lot, and it gave us a very nice, simple, but potent twist on standard platforming, and you'll see the applications in the later levels. This is the mural room. These are where the collectibles come into play. The mural orbs that you collected earlier fly into these murals, and they actually activate veins of energy within it, and you can see the picture that it creates, and this is our primary form of narrative. These are sort of hieroglyphs that the previous civilization left here. They were very fond of stick figures, and that's how they tell their story, or that's at least the story that they've left behind. And when you get up close to it, it flies out of your inventory and connects. And here we've got, and the orb is always in a relevant position on the mural, so it's always like a source of power or a source of heat or something. So here it's the sun, and the next one, it's a gem during mining. And so if we look at these, it's like there was farming, but then there was mining, but a guy mined an orb, and the orb was surprised that it had been found, and then that created religion. Stick figure religion and orbs, the legacy of my people. I'm not trying to make fun of the story. It is very loose, it's very open to player interpretation, and it is really whatever you want to believe it is. The level that we just finished was created by our lead level designer, Tyler Morgan, did a fantastic job across the board. And this next level is sort of the transition between the exterior jungle and interior temple, and it pushes the mechanics you've learned even further. This is made by our level designer, Pranav Kumar. A little more spikes, more fog. I'll actually jump this time, I promise. Whee! And when we break into this, the music will begin. We really tried to have the music in every level begin in tune with an action the player made, because that made it feel a lot more satisfying. And there we go. Splash, splash, splash. So now we're inside the temple. Gonna go get that mural orb. I'm gonna try and collect all of the mural orbs so that you can see all of the murals, which I understand is a little bit of a spoiler, but you know what? You really should have just gone and downloaded the game. So this part combines your previous mechanic of just going around curved surfaces with jumping over spikes, and then it introduces you to both at the same time, and that's when you learn that Hamok can jump relative to the surface he's attached to. He sort of just falls towards the direction that his feet are facing. And this moment is actually fantastic. So we have this ceiling flip that you can do, and players didn't really understand it initially because they had been used to curved surfaces, very continuous surfaces. And this was a great way to sort of trick them into doing it, but in a way that made them feel intelligent. So they see the spikes, they come this way, and every player jumps and attaches to the ceiling. And they're like, oh, cool, I'm on the ceiling. And from then on, they understand that. They felt really smart. It was very natural, very well done. You're rewarded for that within this little rapids. And this is where we transition into the real temple. This is sort of an Aztec alligator head that really tests whether or not you have the flip and rhythm down. And I think there's an eye that follows you up there. Pranav is weird, but that's okay. down the esophagus. This checkpoint is kind of special. It's on a rotated surface, and it has part of the script when you respawn is that it takes the rotation of the checkpoint into account when it spawns you. If you keep going down this way, as opposed to jumping up and keep going, if you stay on the wall and move down, you're rewarded with a little thing. You gotta dash over it to grab it, and that feels super good, and then you're rewarded with little splashes. We reward players with splashes. It's very interesting. And here we have the first sphere that you experience. This is actually part of a greater design decision. So as you saw at the beginning of level 1, the last thing in the level was a curved surface the player could walk on. We do this because we want the last thing in a level to reflect a major theme of the next level. So that one was a curved surface that you walk on, and then the entire second level was all about wall walking. This introduces a sphere. The entire next level, which I built, is very focused on spherical movement, and it sort of tests advanced uses of the mechanics you've picked up so far. So the story we have now, he shoved it in a golem. That gave the golem 400 horsepower of lifting strength. And then a happy golem society was formed, and stick figures and rockmen lived together forever in harmony. Take whatever you want from it. Okay, so this is level 3. This is the level that I built. I'm going to have a separate video that goes really in depth of my actual design decisions section by section, so I'm just going to sort of skim through this like I have in the past ones. But I did build this. I really wanted to sell the ruined theme, so there's a lot of spheres, curved surfaces, there's angles, things look fallen apart. And let's just experience it. Ooh, super satisfying. Ooh. I really wanted this level to convey the scope of our world and really sort of hit home that mystery of a lost civilization. So there's grand dwarfing structures that I composed out of random tile sets, and really just tried to think outside the box with our modular pieces. And I really took advantage of my camera change scripts. Being the lead programmer, I was very familiar with how the player movement operated and how the camera worked, and I took advantage of that a lot to keep the controls responsive and behaving very predictably, because moving from sphere to sphere can be very daunting if you're not confident in the controls. And this whole level is submerged, really feels forgotten and drowned. And nice parallaxing around this bend. This next section has really nice rhythm to it, and it was a big test of the player's grasp of the mechanics so far. So you jump, dash, dash, and then you have a nice land. Most players do it very quickly and have a nice rhythm to it that they experience. Oh no! I built this level and I died. You have no hope. As you can see, so when you die, all of the barriers, and actually it goes way further than that into the parallaxing scripts, but all of the barriers that you break are restored. So the world is literally reset to how it was, with the exception of the orbs. You keep the orbs, because we're nice people. Woo, all 3! It's almost like I knew where they were. So one of the pieces of feedback that I got early for this level was that players really wanted to kind of know what the structure they were climbing on was, because it felt very deliberate but fallen apart. And because of that, I made this. Using the modular tile set, I actually built a giant derelict golem that you've been climbing through this entire time. Players really, really enjoyed that, and I really enjoyed building it. And let's see some story. Giant golems build towers. Oh, looks like the tower from the beginning. But, oh no, then they lost their arms and they were sad. Rub my shoulder, Steve. The golems are in pain. Alright, so this last level was again by our lead level designer Tyler Morgan, and it's a fantastic conclusion to the game. I'm going to go sort of move through it quickly because it's a very hectic level, but sort of as in theme with our greater design decisions, that moving platform at the end of level 3 introduced moving platforms as a concept, and now moving platforms are a massive part of this level. This is sort of the final stretch to the top of the temple that we saw at the beginning, and let's just jump into it. There's a lot more things to keep track of. The level's a lot more hectic, as I said earlier, and there's a lot more transitioning between moving surfaces. And then Tyler, being the sadistic person that he is, put spikes on these things and turned them into chomping hazards, which plays a very large role. Oh man, gotta keep up with it. Ceiling walk, yeah. Woo! No, don't eat me. Tyler was very proud of that moment. You don't actually have enough time to finish it, so you have to dash to get out of it, and then it flows really nicely into going back and grabbing the orb. It's a very nice moment. Now the final test of your cat-like reflexes. Can you avoid slowly encroaching spikes? Spikes have no story. Do not collect them. No! Why, Tyler? Why do you hate us? Ah! Felt so satisfying. I am an amazing game player. Alright, the final story. A guy in a fez made blueprints. And then the people started thinking with portals, but the golems were sleepy. And then I was where I was at the start of the game. What does it mean? So much mystery. Alright, so this is the final sequence. I actually built this section, so lots of parallaxing, great scope. The camera pulls back slowly as you cross the water to the final island, where your fallen golem brethren have been resting for possibly a millennia. And this is sort of similar to the opening sequence in that I have a custom script that manipulates the camera and activates animations. And this is the end of the game, so let's experience it. I give my magical soul so that my golem brethren can live. Good night, sweet prince. So that is the Millennial Stone. Really, really fun project to work on. Great team. A lot of challenges, but we had a blast overcoming them. Our music was by Julian Spearman, really good composer. He did a fantastic job with it, and a huge shout out to our producer, John Clark, who really helped us understand how we should go about doing things and helped us get through the project. And there's a little list of all the collectibles in case collectibles are cracked to you like they are to me and you just want to go find all of them and get that story. As I said earlier, if you want to play it, even though you just watched it, my website, alexschultz.com, there's a whole page for the Millennial Stone. You can download it there. We would love it if you played it. Again, it was a huge blast to make, and for it being the first game that we all made, we were extremely proud of it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed this.